Good morning. My name is Jill Hicks. I live in Chapel Green, Lewis, and I am on the board of the Sussex Preservation Coalition. I am here to discuss the need to reevaluate and amend the cluster subdivision code. I am not here to retry Coral Lakes. However, as the poster child, it provides clear evidence to make an indisputable case. First is a matter of buffers. The perimeter buffer of 30 feet is insufficient and commonly ignored by developers. With Brentwood, formerly known as Coral Lakes, the developer stated they were going to leave a 30-foot forested buffer and then intentionally cleared beyond that. The perimeter buffer needs to be reevaluated and amended to avoid what you are about to see. This also underscores the need for a tree ordinance. This play set is on our property. As you can see, we are now left with less than 15-foot buffer, and cutting the existing forest back this far puts the trees on our property and our play set at risk. My neighbors and I asked the County Council and Planning and Zoning, please make sure that native trees are replanted in the buffer and that the homes are built with no less than 50 feet from the perimeter as testified by the developer. Regarding open space, the developer stated, quote, the proposed cluster development is superior in design. The applicant is proposing 50% open space equal to 75.5 acres more or less, end quote. Of these 152 acres, do you see 75.5 acres or 50% of what you would call contiguous open space? Is any of it active open space? Very little, especially to meet the needs of 304 to 315 homes. This is not superior design. So the current definition of open space is poor at best and should be specifically defined as active open space to qualify as superior design. And let's be clear, stormwater ponds are utilities, not amenities or active open space. Buffers and wetlands, by definition and code, do not qualify as active open space either. And finally, density. The developer said, quote, Coral Lakes complies with the municipal code by proposing low density, end quote. Does this look like low density? The current density calculation for a cluster subdivision does not require a prior yield plan to determine the allowable units. This should be a requirement for superior design. To end on a positive note, I want to thank the planning and zoning staff for coming out to our properties to witness the perimeter buffer infraction. They were courteous and professional, as they have always been in these matters. We hope that you will take these points under consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill.
Very good. Good morning. My name is Jeff Seamans. I'm a resident of Milton, Delaware, and Sussex County. I'm a retired registered landscape architect, land planner, and project manager, and I spent the last 22 years of my career for a builder real estate developer in Newcastle County. I've also worked for Newcastle County Department of Planning. I'd like to read some words during my 3 minutes. They are words written in English, and they are found within your own zoning code, Chapter 115. I want to read them because I believe there are 4 groups that do not understand these words, and I believe that this ordinance needs to be fixed. Those 4 groups are builders and developers in Sussex County. The second group would be local engineering consultants. The third group would be your own Planning and Zoning Commission. And I would say, given the approval of Coral Lakes, with all due respect, I think the fourth group that may not understand these words would be Sussex County Council. I would like to start by reading just a few highlights from this cluster design ordinance. Design requirements for cluster development. Housing types in the low density area is shown on the, all lots shall be configured to be contained completely outside of all wetlands. All wetlands. The cluster development sketch plan and the preliminary plan of the cluster subdivision provides for a total environment and design which are superior and the reasonable judgment of the Planning Commission to that which would be allowed under the regulations for standard option. Homes shall be clustered on the environmentally suitable portions of the tract specifically those portions of the tract least encumbered by sensitive development features, including but not limited to wetlands, mature woodlands. The applicant for a cluster development shall illustrate that the following sequence and process was followed in the site design of the cluster project. Identify lands that should be preserved. First, areas worthy of preservation should be mapped. Identify developable areas next. The most appropriate areas for development should be chosen to minimize the impact to the most important features mapped in the first step. The cluster development plan will preserve the natural environment. And then it also says that the Planning and Zoning Commission may add conditions to the approval of any cluster development to protect adjacent properties. In my opinion, even though these are words in English and from your own code, they don't seem to be understood. They don't seem to be understood, and I believe that the code, the cluster development ordinance, should be ripped up, and I believe should be started from scratch. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Hudson?
A couple of years ago, I talked about our forested buffers. And I think it's time that we look into this and get some teeth into it, especially with Jill's presentation today. I talked about trees of a certain size that are inside the forested buffer. They can't be touched. And number two, I want to put some teeth in it and add to this. And if someone goes in and clear cuts the forested buffer, they have to wait 5 years before they develop it. I think that that's something that we should get serious and look at and put some teeth into this ordinance, because I don't know that by planting a forested buffer after you've clear cut it with saplings that are 3/4 of an inch in diameter that take 50 or 60 years to develop is a forested buffer. And then half of them are going to die anyway because they don't get enough water. So, but that's where I want to go with this.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
I would,
Oh.
yes. I'd like to second Councilman Hudson's comments. I was outraged by what I saw this morning. And if that's not a violation of the ordinance, then the ordinance is flawed. It's not what I envisioned when we passed it. And it's problematic. It needs teeth. I'd like to see these loopholes closed, and I think there's more than one. And I'd like to see it done quickly. I'm just really very disappointed with what I saw this morning. And I've been out to the property and seen it myself, and it's not what I had envisioned when we had these discussions a couple of years ago. So,
Anyone else?